Hey ho, it's Marco Cattaneo representing Charles III University with yet another study aid for the subject ITI 597, the subject that covers like IT service management. Hey, in today's topic we're going to take a closer look at some basic concepts for the process incident management. Yeah, some basic concepts for the process incident management. It says here incident management as a process. It's all about like restoring services as soon as possible or restoring services like as quickly as possible. It's all about like restoring the continuity of those users out there and getting them back on track as like soon as possible so they can continue with their normal day-to-day like job. The process really is like end to end, so it's all the way from like recording an incident all the way to like actually like finally like closing an incident. Of course, like if we deal with incidents, we want to make sure like we follow the service level agreements because they will tell us like how quickly we should respond, for example, and how quickly we should like be resolving all those incidents. What else? Now, the book actually, the ITIL volume talks about like, okay, some basic concepts for the process incident management. Let's talk about timescales. Let's talk about like the various incident models, and let's talk about like how to deal with like major incidents. Yeah, timescales. Let's see. It says here timescales must be agreed for all incident handling stages. How quickly should we like respond to the incident? How quickly should we like resolve the incident? How often should we provide feedback? And for example, when do we start to escalate? We want to know when these things should happen. Well, that will depend on like factors like the priority level, which is then based upon impact and urgency, the response and resolution targets as like required by the business, and like the various like statements made in like SLAs, OLAs, and UCs, and the service level agreements, the operational level agreements, and the underpinning contracts. You typically want like support groups to be informed, so they need to know. For example, the service desk, of course, like needs to know like how quickly to deal with those incidents, but also like the second level and the third level support teams, they need to know like how quickly we should be dealing with all these incidents. The recommendation is to use tools. To use tools to automate these timescales and to automate like escalation based upon like sets of like predefined rules to make it like all a bit like less error prone. Yeah, incident models. Many incidents are similar. I mean, you've got your hardware incidents, you've got your software incidents, you've got your like people incidents, you've got your major ones, you've got your non-major ones, and how you deal with them. It's often like done in a very similar way. So the recommendation is to create like these predefined, I call them standards, okay, like the models, standards or like workflows. This is how we deal with a major incident, and this is how we deal, for example, like with a non-major incident. So it's a way of dealing with a particular type of incident in an agreed way, typically agreed within like the service level agreements. So the nice thing is like incidents, they will get like a predefined path. For like major incidents, we always follow the following steps, and we always like do the following steps, and we do them like in the following timescales. So that all becomes clear, it becomes consistent, it becomes repeatable, and of course like it helps like to set the expectations between IT and the business. Again, the recommendation is like if you've got like your incident models, and typically well, they're like workflows slash standards on like how you deal with incidents. It would be nice if you could embed them in your tools and like automate some of that stuff, because again it will all become like less error prone and more consistent and more like repeatable, and that's what we want in like IT nowadays, and that's what we want like in the business environment nowadays. So these incident models, what should they be like? Describing a couple of things, the steps that should be taken for each of those incident categories, the order of the steps, including any dependencies or like things that need to be processed like in other parts of like IT or in other parts of the business. Responsibilities, who's going to do what? Timescales and thresholds, again, like response times and like resolution times and escalation times and like communication times, you name it. Again, the escalation procedures, who should be contacted and when, at what moment. And also like evidence preservation activities, like what type of like documentation do we need to like file and store like for future, like for example maybe for auditing purposes. So that's typically the stuff you find like back in like an incident model. So what are major incidents? Let's see, major incidents. Well, you need like a separate procedure for major incidents because typically they've got like a huge impact and like no one can work in the business anymore. Like all the PCs are down and all the servers are down. So typically major incidents, like they need like shorter timescales and like a greater urgency if you're actually going to deal with them. So what constitutes a major incident? Well, that's an interesting question. So you have to actually really create those definitions of like what is a major incident. It may be, for example, like a critical service is down, or like you're experiencing like huge financial losses. Major incidents, realize this, like major incidents never ever turn into problems. I mean, incident management is all about like restoring services, whereas problem management is about like finding the underlying cause of like why things went down, for example. So keep them separate. They're not the same thing. Also, it's recommended to like form, if you've got like enough resources, like a major incident team. So you have like a dedicated team to like really look and like and restore the services. If you talk about like that major incident, in the end, that major incident team will still report back to the incident manager, because the incident manager is like and accountable for the incident management process. So yeah, you want like a separate procedure to deal with like major incidents. And again, you also have your non-major incidents to deal with, of course. Yeah, you've probably seen this slide before. It's an example of like a priority matrix. And for example, if you determine that the impact of an incident is like high, and you also determine that the urgency is like high, you may say like, okay, now it becomes like a priority 1 incident. And based upon all that information, you can say like, okay, priority 1 incidents, they will follow the model for like, for example, like a major incident. And any incident like not prioritized as like priority 1 will follow like the model for like a non-major incident. So feel free and apply those rules with flexibility, because in the end, like this matrix, how you use it will all depend on your specific organization, your specific like environment. Yeah, practice what you preach. Of course, it's about understanding the basic concepts for the incident management process. Hey, triage. Triage is a process of prioritizing patients based on the severity of their condition. What happens? What happens if we replace like the word patients with like incidents or fault events? And what could we or what should we maybe replace the word like condition with? Have fun with the exercise, okay? Cheers. Sample question. Which one of the following factors will have like the least amount of influence when defining like incident timescales? Answer A, priority / severity level. Answer B, available resources. Answer C, response targets. And answer D, resolution targets. I'll give you a couple of seconds to think about the answer, and then as usual, we continue. Yeah, what's the answer? Of course, the answer is like answer B. Okay, like the fact that you don't have enough people to like deal with all the incidents. Well, the business doesn't care, and if the business like if they think they've got like a major incident, then they've got a major incident. So, and then of course, like you should be following like the right timescales. So B is absolutely not a factor that should be like impacting on setting those timescales. Yeah, the next topic, we're going to define and explain the key activities for the process incident management, all part of service operation. Hey, until then, live long and prosper. Nano, nano. And as always, I'll be back.